Thank you for joining us today. I'm Rich Wanden from Accelerance. I'm the Chief Customer Success Officer, and I work with our partners throughout the world and our customers to make sure that we bring them great software partners to work and develop software. So the reason why I'm talking to you today is to make that introduction about what we do, but more specifically to talk about why we work with eCore. So Matteo, if you'd like to introduce yourself, I'll take over from there.
Yes. Hi, Rich. Thank you for joining us today for the Connections event. So my background is initially in software development, and over the years, I went into project management, service delivery management, and ultimately, I've been working with sales and account management. So my role at eCore has been to establish new partnerships, both with companies like Accelerance, as well as with essentially our clients, to understand what their business goals are and to kick off projects and oversee projects to make sure that we're meeting those business and technical goals from our clients.
Very good. All right. And so for my background, I've spent more than 25 years now working in consulting and systems integration and outsourcing businesses throughout the world. I grew up in New Zealand, moved to Australia, spent a lot of time there working in and out of Asia and the US. And I came up to Accelerance a few years ago when I met them from Australia and have joined. And to introduce Accelerance as a company, what we do is we're a company that finds great software companies and helps customers who are looking for an offshore software developer to make a very good choice. So if we talk about what we've done over the last 20 years as we've been in business, we look at software companies day in, day out. We've looked at over 8,000 of them. Some of them we do a very light desktop evaluation on and we move on because that's the quality and it's very apparent from them. Others of them, there's a lot more there to them that makes sense. So we've been very careful about what we do, and we have a methodology which is incredibly strict. We do not deal with every company that knocks on our door. And I just want to emphasize right from the get-go that part of the reason why we work with eCore is for certain key attributes that are there. But as we run through this due diligence process, as we call it, it gets down to us visiting those companies on site to verify everything that they've said. And verifying is a trait of ours, and we'd recommend it's a trait of yours as you're choosing a company as well. So through this funnel of 8,000, we're down to about 1% of them. We work with somewhere between 80 and 200 companies at any one time servicing our customers. If you want to go to the next slide, Matteo. So when we talk about what we say is a certified software development company from Accelerance, it usually takes 6 months to get through our process. It's quite in depth. We vet those companies extensively, both in person and the personnel that are in those companies before we would ever bring them to a customer. We look deeply at the skills that they claim to have. And, for a lot of these companies that even come to the first stage of our process where on paper, they look good and they respond to our first survey, when they respond to our second survey telling us that they're an expert in 20 areas, they really wish they didn't, because then they get the expertise survey. And at that point, a lot of them completely disappear. So we're all about not calling people's bluff, but verifying what they say. And if they cannot prove it, then let's move on to a better company. And again, I can emphasize that the work we've done with eCore, they've been through this process. So we're looking at the skills. More importantly, we're also looking at how they work as a business. So the business model and the operating model. And again, in our matching experience with customers, a lot of companies we find there are millions of good software companies out there, but they're not always the right ones for you. And it may be your operating model is different, not suitable or not compatible with the company that you're talking to. Or the practices may not be as mature or, dare I say it, even immature as you'd need them to be to work well with your company as it is. So from that perspective, thinking through what makes a perfect match is also another really important second stage of our process. But and then coming back to, again, why we choose companies and what we look at them for. When we work with a customer, we will gather their needs and we'll look across our portfolio of partners and we'll map them. We call it a matrix, but we basically come up with a matrix saying, of all the requirements that matter for you as a customer, here are our top-ranked partners that we think we should introduce you to and start running a process of verification of their capabilities and their suitability to work with you. And if you'd like to go to the next slide, Matteo. So, as I said before, in the process that we run, we have a very clear program of discovery. The 6 areas that we really look at what these companies represent to work with companies in the US or the UK or Australia. It's their experience, their technical expertise. We look at their rates. And there is no point in us bringing to one of our customers a company whose rates are beyond their budget. We really look at the cultural considerations of how that company works. Okay, and we've been there, we've visited them, we've worked with their staff, we've sat down, we've spent days with them, usually going through meetings, lunches, dinners. You get to know people, you get a feel for the company. And often these relationships don't work because you've got a clash of cultures, or you've got cultures that are slightly misaligned. So that's important. And with that also comes the communication skills and how they work. So not just having standard processes, but having processes that you know when you're working with a customer are going to fit into the way that you need to work. And, if we think of just Agile, for example, we have a lot of customers who will come to us and say, we're following roughly an Agile framework. And we have some partners who are incredibly rigorous about how they can run an Agile process with a customer. And it's not suitable for many of them. They need to tone it down or fit it in. And some of those partners are awesome at fitting it in. And Equals, again, exhibited that when they've worked with our customers before many times about being able to fit in with the processes and make sure that it's going to be a successful relationship. And then finally, another really important thing comes up is actually how they manage IP. And security is a precursor to that as well in terms of the protection of intellectual property. So those are 6 things that we'd always look for. And Matteo, if you'd like to go on to the next slide. So all of this is encapsulated. If you go to our website, you can actually look up our due diligence guide, which has a whole lot of checklists. And I promise you that if you went through some of those questions and processes with the team at Ecore, that you'd be fine, because they've been through it several times with our customers and passed with flying colors. So I'd encourage you to go and download that and use it for what you will. And if you have any questions, come back to Matteo, and he'll refer you on to me if that makes sense, that we all have a conversation together. And I think we've got one more slide there, Matteo. All right. So, as I've emphasized, we're very strict about who we do business with. And, it's super important that as people are trying to find a company offshore, every sales guy will make all the promises in the world to you. They'll do everything that you want. And then you'll find out the hard way. We absolutely stand for being completely the opposite, knowing who you're trying to deal with and then making sure that they're going to fit in. So we've got some great examples of where we've worked with Ecore and our customers in competitive situations where there've been other non-Accelerance partners. And also we always usually bring 1 or 2 Accelerance partners to meet our customers so that they've got some choice. But working together with customers to create some really business-driven outcomes. And if I think back on the years that we've been working together, one of Accelence's mantras is first of all, you should pick the company that you want to work with by knowing the management and knowing that they've got your back. It's a very important tenet of what we say. And when I have a customer come and say, look, I just need people, we say, well, hang on, find out who you're getting the people from. You better know them. Because as you evolve and as your business model evolves and the business needs that your software is meant to service evolve, you need that partner to be able to support you and know that they've got your back. And again, we've got great examples where long-term relationships with Accelerance customers working with Ecore over 2 or 3 years, that there's been a pattern of that behavior, and which has really serviced customers. So when I think about who we've got, we're working with payment processing platforms. I have a customer in Austin, and eCore have ramped them up a team very, very quickly. It's not an easy requirement that eCore have met for them. And together, they've worked very well with the customer to help them through something that the customer was struggling with. So that's been very good. We have another platform that deals with online payments for professionals. So it's basically the back end, not just accepting the payments, but also the billing part of the process. And that's been an incredibly impactful and successful relationship for the business. And, again, we review our partners' performances with these businesses, at least on a quarterly basis. So we know how our partners are performing. So that's important. And then there's another e-commerce platform that we've been working with. It's a B2B e-commerce platform. So it's handling larger transactions with eCore. And I mean, Matteo, have you got anything to add about, our team works with your team almost day in, day out on these opportunities as we bring them to market, but then we'll always keep in touch. But do you have any thoughts about how this has been working for you?
Yeah, I was actually thinking, complementing from the other perspective, because you described very well the thorough process you go through to authorize vendors such as
Yep.
eCore to be
Yep.
part of your network, which has been for us, like you described, over 6 months. It started
Yep.
with me having the first few calls, then meeting with some of our management team, and ultimately you going to Brazil, your team going to Brazil,
Mhm.
and visiting both of our offices in Brazil.
Mm.
But I was actually thinking, even from the other perspective, the work that Accelerance does to advise clients in how to establish a proper relationship and how to manage a relationship with companies such as eCore. And that also contributes to the other side. And so I can say that of all the clients that you brought to us, or that you brought us to your clients, it was always a good fit. It was always,
Mm.
a very good potential for a good fit.
Mm.
And ultimately, it culminated in a good relationship, and it has been going on for years. So,
Mm. Our secret to that, and we would say there is no secret in the sense of why those relationships turn out so well. If there are certain elements that we have over the years thought they need to be present for this to be successful, if some of those elements are missing, it really increases the chance of risk. And we have a methodology that looks at various risk factors, sort of 15 risk factors in an engagement. And with some customers, we go through that if we feel that they're not, if they've got gaps in what they're doing in terms of maybe they don't have great product management and they know it, how do we help them address that before you would get into a situation where you're hiring engineers? Or better still, in that case, we often bring partners like eCore who would say, we can actually provide someone who will fill the product management role, mentoring someone on your team who could move into that role over time. Right. So, if certain things are missing, it's almost a matter of, you could bet money on it that sometime very soon in the future, they will come to manifest and cause issues in the relationship. And, for a customer who's building a team of, 10 or 20 engineers and QA resources and, business analysts and those sorts of things, having a team that's not working optimally is a large expense. Plus, they're not getting the business results that they need from their software. So at that point, it's sort of like, let's help you make sure the house is in order before you hire a partner. And sometimes it's, have you thought about certain processes? And I'll give you a classic one. We will say to a customer, all right, so let's assume in a month's time we're sitting down with a partner and you want to have engineers working for you in 6 weeks' time. How's your transition plan looking? Some of them are absolutely adept at transition plans. It's, yes, we're just bringing on another partner. This is what we do. This is our method. Some of them are, what is a transition plan? I haven't done one of those before. And another secret that we have is we often say to our customers, we will ask them as we're working with them about their preferences for working with a partner. Have you ever had any experience working with a nearshore or an offshore organization? and how was it? And some of them have had absolutely amazing relationships that they have cultivated over years and have been very successful. And others of them have struggled for various reasons. Maybe their organization wasn't ready for it. Maybe their team didn't like the time zone gap. And, it's no secret we do a lot of work in LATAM because of time zone alignment. So there are many factors that, having done this so many times, we would look at and say, well, we could predict that there could be issues if we don't address this particular matter. And I think, that's up front. And then there's another piece that's super important. We have a process that we call Align, and it is all about bringing together the partner and the customer team to work in aligned processes. And I know that sounds really crazy, that you would never think that would happen. But again, if you're not working with a good partner, and eCore are very good at bringing partners on, we've seen this. But if you don't have a partner who absolutely makes sure that your engineers don't make assumptions about how they're working, they really know that that's how you're going to handle your scrums and handle your stand-ups and handle your tickets and handle your user stories and how you're doing all this work together, you can lose a lot of productivity early on. And a team that struggles to ramp up is often a team that never gets on in life. So those things are really, really important to address up front. And with every one of those examples that's up there on the screen there, we've got off to a really good start, and it's continued to go from strength to strength. So, and part of that is in the quality of the partner that you choose. So, I'd say those two things: think about up front before you start, and think about what you do the moment you're bringing that team in.
All right. Thank you, Rich. So I will complement with a little bit more here. We brought one of our clients that we work with together, Single Digits. Essentially, what Single Digits offers is internet connectivity or Wi-Fi access in public places. So, for example, if you stayed at a hotel and you had to maybe enter your name and your room number and authenticate to access internet, there's a very good chance that you already used those services from Single Digits. They also work with other companies, essentially for student housing, senior living facilities. And the challenge there was how to provide those services, starting with the network connectivity, but also the security, authentication, authorization that goes into that. And also some additional services that they can offer on top of that. For example, maybe monetizing it and maybe offering a basic service that is free, or maybe charging if you want higher speed for streaming, for example, or if you need to work and you are willing to pay a little bit more to make sure that you have that connectivity. So it's a very interesting case. Our team joined there to work on this solution, the management of this solution, using technologies like React. And I invite everyone to scan the QR code and read more about this case later today after the presentation.
And Matteo, one thing I would say about that, working with, Mike internally from our team who looks after Single Digits, you didn't just give them engineers, in the sense of they had ambitions beyond what they're doing with deploying Kit. And again, it's not a company that was just about saying, I've got you an internet logon service, or I've got you a controller for your students to be able to, manage the lighting in the dormitories and that sort of thing. It was a slightly different paradigm where they were saying, I want to do something different from that business model. I want to take it to another level, like you said, where I can monetize it. And I would have to say that sometimes you will get partners in life, from a software perspective, who just can't go there. And again, the quality of some of the companies that we work with, eCore included, is such that, we're looking for customers. When a customer is ambitious and says, look, I'm got the standard business model, I want to go somewhere else, I'm trying to monetize it, or I'm trying to build some sort of network or disrupt the industry somehow, the quality of the partner that you pick, the intellectual horsepower of the team is paramount to being successful. So, and people like John Nelson will say that you guys were very helpful working with them, co-creating or at least helping them. Yep, if that's what you want, there are ways of doing that, and that's where you guys added huge value there. So
Absolutely. And moving forward, speaking also of the engagement model that we use with our clients. So I think complementing to what you were describing, we can both complement teams, in essence, bring on technical resources. And sometimes that's what some of the clients are comfortable early on. But from the beginning, we're also bringing to the table our ability to run full squads and to contribute with the design of the solution, the management of the whole team, and complementing with the different technical skills necessary to develop the solution. So that's where we have all of those different roles, starting from, say, backend developers, mobile developers, going on to the management side of it, like Scrum Masters or service delivery managers, but also digital strategists and product owners that will interact with the business and essentially help design a solution for a business problem and bring that to life. And mentioning some of the technologies that are usually involved in the solutions that we design, large number. I'd like to highlight ones like Java, Python, Golang for the backend, and JavaScript and different frameworks like React for the front end. And a lot of the work that we do as well runs on cloud, so primarily AWS and Google Cloud. We are partners with both AWS and Google Cloud. So we are able to provide all of those solutions. And we're also bringing new capabilities, especially for cloud management services, cloud application migration and modernization. And these are areas that then, when we're working with Accelerance in finding the good fit between a partner like eCore and a client, we take all of this into consideration, both the solution they're trying to design as well as the technology stack that they're using.
Yep.
And regarding processes as well, so I'd like to divide this essentially in two. We're talking about familiar processes that we have with Agile methodologies and Scrum methodologies. So activities like sprint planning or demos at the end of every sprint to see the improvements to the product, making sure that our team is tightly integrated through video and instant messaging for daily calls and daily stand-ups, but also making sure that we are constantly improving. So at the end of each sprint, having a retrospective, and at least quarterly having executive meetings that will inform the direction of what the business is trying to achieve, where we have been successful, what metrics are being useful for our development, and how we can continue to improve for the following quarters. And these are areas that we also partner with Accelerance. So I think this is where the partnership goes even stronger, where we are not only being introduced, but it's a joint partnership between the three companies in following up the success and continuing to evolve that relationship.
Yeah, Matteo, I've seen examples of where you've contributed to that whole kind of methodology and management of a client site and actually help them mature processes before as well. Some clients are very open to needing that and wanting a partner to come in and do that. And so again, having that depth of maturity to be able not just to sort of impose a process, but to help mold it in, that's a very different skill set from a lot of partners that sets you guys apart. But also, from an Accelerance perspective, we meet our customers, and part of our mantra also with our customers is that when we bring a partner and they make certain undertakings, we know what they're telling you is reasonable and honest. But that following up for us is about making sure that, those promises made are promises kept. And, we wouldn't be sitting here today if we wouldn't take a partner who wasn't performing for a customer in an opportunity where we've brought them to it and they appeared to be successful and win it. We wouldn't be taking them to other opportunities. So again, as just as a demonstration of the fact that I'm here talking to you today. You guys are very good with your customers and how you manage them and how you work with them to come up with solutions when they hit roadblocks as well. And I've seen that, especially on the customer we're dealing with in Austin. Um, they were pretty stumped about what they were trying to do in terms of bringing Scala resources, and you've worked out a way with them that you will find Java people certified in Scala, and you will use the client's onboarding and training to get them a pool of junior and mid-level Scala engineers working to deliver their program of work. And they had struggled for a year to do that before they met you. So, I know you can talk about all these different things, but, when you see these in action actually delivering changes in the way that you operate, that's not every partner can do that.
Yeah, thank you, Rich. Yeah, and I think ultimately it goes back to our focus on the client's real need, right? And trying
Yep.
to work through what they're trying to achieve. And sometimes a focus on a particular technology might not be the best solution. So we may
Mm.
propose a different one, or we may propose to train people, or we may propose to, okay, you keep this part of the work and we keep the other part of the work because we're better like this together.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think being upfront and addressing issues when they come up, all of that goes into building trust, which is one of the core values, and that lets us grow with those clients.
Yeah. We look for partners with high EQ, right? The way that their whole team and their management team will interact. And the, one of the interesting observations I'll make during the pandemic is that, with resources being hired everywhere all over the world, um, this is companies have struggled with this. So, we've been working with all of our partners on a weekly basis on new accounts, your resourcing person, your account manager, but more importantly, the resourcing person with the customer, going through the ramp up and making sure that that's put in place. And there are certain things that are really, really important. Now, in that situation, when the resourcing gets hard, that resourcing manager has to go to their management and say, "Look, I need more help here, or I need more capacity to recruit, or I need people to be made available off other projects." To be able to do that and have a management that reacts well to that, that's really important. And when I said before about first you want to know how the management of the company is going to roll, that's exactly the example where that comes into play. And you should really establish that up front before you start working with the company. Otherwise, you find out that management's inflexible. They're not going to hire people at the speed you want, or they're not going to roll people off projects and assign them to your project. Um, so I'd always say be very careful with that in your partner selection.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned earlier making sure that the promises are being kept. So I think
Absolutely.
it comes down to it as well, making sure you're promised what you can deliver and growing and building from there.
Mm. I mean, we record all those sessions. Mateo's used to this and his team. When we work with a customer, we'll always record the sessions. Um, that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, and again, if you're looking at other companies, I mean, play a bit of a game with them and see what they're like. When they bring somebody new to a meeting that you haven't met, well, with us, they got to watch those videos before they come. Right? There's no excuse to turn up and say, "What is this about?" And the number of customers we have who say, "Look, sometimes I really wonder if that partner actually even cares about what we're doing here," right? Is phenomenal. So setting these tests to make sure the engagement is right. I'd record the calls. I'd be following them up with emails and asking them questions just for the fun of it, just to test how they'd react. Can they be flexible? I had another partner, they got completely wrong the scope. They turned up to the customer and they said, "You'll need 4 senior guys to do this." The customer said, "I won't." And they had a nice conversation where they explained, actually, no, you probably think this is more complex. It's built, it's really operational support. There's a very different proposal gone back that's been accepted, more around a managed service using mid-level and junior resources. And being able to have those kinds of dialogues and see that working is really, really important with a partner before you select them. So put some tests out and try them with Matteo and his team as well.
Okay. And the other thing, Rich, I'd like to ask you about is recent trends. What are you seeing in this market of offshore and nearshore outsourcing? You of course get to see and visit so many different companies. So I'd love to hear from you what you're seeing as far as trends for 2023 and beyond.
All right. On our website, there is a link to our 2023 Accelerance Global Rates and Trends Guide. And that's quite a comprehensive document about what we're seeing happening in the world. And I've pull a couple of things that we are seeing as large trends. So normally we track rates all over the world, both from companies that want to become a partner, companies that we know from benchmark studies, who run benchmark studies of rates, and Accelerance partners. So if I said what was the trend for rates globally in 2022, we definitely saw rates increase over 20% in Latin America. That's been driven by a number of hiring activities from US firms going direct into LATAM, which is a very dangerous thing because they're usually not complying with local tax laws. And I cannot emphasize what a problem that is when you're dealing with companies that do not comply with local regulations. That is why you deal with partners like Ecor. They pay their taxes, they pay their insurances for their staff, they pay their pensions. It's whereas these contracting firms or people are sending money down to these companies get into real problems. So we've seen huge pressure with a bit of that going on, but also this trend to hire anywhere across Latin America and even into India or other parts of Asia and Europe. That's been accelerating the whole world over. We think the heat's beginning to come out of that. We're seeing signs that it's beginning to slow down everywhere except for Latin America. European rates and rates in Asia, and I'll call it, through Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Philippines, Vietnam, sweeping through there, didn't increase dramatically in 2022. They increased, but not at the same sort of rate as LATAM. But we think that really LATAM's going to plateau out this year in terms of rate increases. So I think really where you're at is it's safe to go to LATAM because there won't be a 20% increase next year, we hope.
Okay.
That's a prediction that we're making. Now, whether or not that pans out, who knows? I think this is a very sweet spot right now to be looking at offshore partners with the US, typically in a recessionary mode. If companies start to do reductions in force, which we know is happening right now, and they're starting to reduce cost, but they still have to have output, outsourcing always does well. Offshoring, outsourcing always does very well in that market, but it usually takes about 6 months to kick in. So we're going to see a bit of that activity. I would say by May of next year, there'll be a big uptick in companies saying, hey, I'm needing to change how we do business. I need to go offshore, but I need to go offshore reliably with quality. So that's one trend. We write about in that trends guide, highlighting, basically, we always track what's the most important, or what are sort of the top technologies and what we're seeing there in terms of market. There's no big surprises there, really, I don't think. But what I would say is we're beginning to see a lot more, we call them tech value networks of companies that were more cooperating together. And in many respects, we look at our partners as actually being able for a customer to form that kind of part of a customer's, value chain, if you like, of technology partners who can do stuff beyond the ordinary. Okay, so we're seeing a big emergence of that sort of procurement, people thinking about, I've got to have strategic partners of a certain size, of a certain capability, but they're not going out to the largest of the Indian heritage SIs or those kinds of companies for everything. They're being very specific about or very intentional about bringing in the right size companies to do the right size jobs, but with the know-how of doing them. So there are really some big trends that we're seeing. In terms of the work that we've done, Matteo, what have you been seeing from your side?
I think similar. I think in addition to that, clients searching more and more for particular specialties. So, for example, the cloud
Mhm.
managed services and application modernization, containerization of applications. So, being very specific about some of the specialties that they're looking for is an area that I see as a continuous trend, instead of just looking for generalists. And that's where our partnerships, for example, with Atlassian, with Google,
Mhm.
with AWS, come into play, where we have a large number of certified professionals and can bring that specialty that they may not have in-house.
So you hit the nail on the head there again. Another thing that, I would advise any person looking at hiring a company anywhere, if they don't have certifications, if they're not part of the, global partner network of a particular software vendor, move on, right? They're not in the conversation. And, that's where it matters. I mean, when we, did our Jira implementation, we went to an Atlassian partner called Ecor. We didn't go to Upwork looking for Atlassian certified people. And we are a boutique advisory firm. That's kind of where we fit in life. We are not McKinsey. We're McKinsey-esque, I'd have to say, in terms of how we think and how we operate. But 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 it never ceases to amaze me how easy it is when you go with an expert. The work is usually done to a higher standard. Uh, and half the time is someone who doesn't know what they're doing but says they do, um, and the cost usually works out cheaper than something that doesn't work. So, so that is definitely something we look for in all the partners, and that's why we don't bring every partner to every deal, every opportunity we have, because they've got to be absolutely perfect for it. So specialization always yields a better result in our experience. Um, and our customers will back that up every day of the week when we speak to them about it. Mm.
Well, thank you very much, Rich. It looks like we're running over our allotted time here. It's been a great conversation. I'm sure we could keep
Thank you for
going.
having me, Matteo. Always good to be here.
Yeah, but thank you again for joining us. And this
Mm.
partnership has been going on for over 3 years, and we look forward to
Yes.
continuing into the next year. Thanks,
Lovely.
everyone.
Thanks, Matteo.